Hey, welcome to SpartanUP Podcast. This is a pretty special episode today. I'm feeling a bit left out. These guys all went down and did the Bataan Death March Memorial. Yeah.
Talk about getting inspired. When we first got there, we listened to true veterans who had gone through it talk about their experience.
Look, you see this line to wait to shake hands with the survivors. Wraps all the way around. I would say it's a good 300 people strong or more. But let's back up even a little bit further.
Yeah.
Why were we there? How did we find out about it? I mean, I'd heard
Great
about
question.
it over the years.
I think
but
someone motivated us.
we did. We met Dan Crowley, and it was one of the previous episodes. I don't know the number, but you can Google SpartanUP Dan Crowley and find it. But he was a Bataan Death March survivor, real Death March survivor. 93, 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, somewhere in there. Mind still a steel trap, still physically firm. And he told us of his experience. And we thought when he got done speaking, we were motivated and said, hey, what a great idea. Why don't we go out and in honor of him, why don't we go out and do this Death March Memorial? And so we found ourselves out in White Sands Missile Range, New Mexico. I don't know, 6 weeks later or so.
But
we thought we were ready.
Hang on. I didn't get any information. I met Dan Crowley.
Yeah.
We did the podcast. He was awesome. He certainly motivated us.
Yeah.
But when you came up with the idea that we were going to go do this thing in New Mexico, you could have written a note or something that said, and bring a good backpack, bring proper shoes. I had no idea what we were getting in. I thought it was a movie we were going to watch.
Yeah, you know, Joe, you're the boss. You're signing the paychecks. I just, because of my background, when I say let's go to a road march at 5,000-foot elevation across the desert in New Mexico, there are some implied tasks. One of them is that you ought to have shoes, and Sefra walked for like 6 miles without any. And you ought to probably have
totally missed out.
You ought to have the back. You ought to have the backpack on your back to go on a road march.
Yeah,
Well,
so
you did it Samsonite.
So you did it.
I had Johnny. You'll appreciate this because Johnny wasn't there for those watching and listening. I had a laptop backpack.
Okay, so I wasn't there. My loss. Who was?
You
Who
were
was there?
missed.
Well, obviously, the three of us, the very committed three of us, the people here that show up for everything were there. We had Marion, obviously, was there. She was carrying a camera. The funny thing is, she wasn't out of breath. We were all out of breath. She's carrying
and she was
cameras,
running
gear,
back and forth.
running.
Actually,
back.
when I was asking Marion about it, about this thing, and she said, my understanding was I was going to be jumping on and off shuttles, being zipped forward and backward. And
No,
said,
you did most of it with us, man.
She said, I ended up walking about 18 miles
Oh,
carrying
easily.
myself.
No,
and she was grateful for it. She said she was really glad that it did go that way because she was part of it.
Easily
Yeah,
walked
at
that
one
much.
point she said, "Let me take your bag, Joe. You look like you're feeling a little weak." True story. We had Erica.
Marion.
Right. So I was going to say we got the SpartanUP crew.
Yeah.
And then we had like 3 additional people.
We had your brother.
We had my brother who came along, Army warrant officer who had just retired days
A
before.
little bit funnier than Colonel Nye.
He's a good guy. And then we had Erica, a Spartan employee who does many of the endurance events.
Many things.
And then Frank the Tank Grippe,
Frank the Tank.
retired command sergeant major, spent most of his career in the Rangers. He was slow, steady, and carrying a lot of weight.
And
Carrying a
charismatic.
lot. At the end,
you
don't know this, Johnny, but at the end you do a weigh-in, and Colonel Nye's brother and I came in 1 pound shy.
Yeah.
We had drank our water. I don't know what the rules are there.
Yeah,
Or
you
maybe-
were close.
we were both at half a pound,
You were
sorry.
close, but there's a standard.
And we missed the standard, and Frank was 5 pounds over.
Oh, yeah, no, Frank's
At
ruck
least.
was 50 pounds.
Their rucks were like this big.
That's
and you're
because Frank
saying,
was eating
I think
gophers
you guys
along
have
the
a
way.
little bit more-
My ruck was 48,
Yeah.
but truth be told, and we'll get into this later, for 14 miles, Sefra carried 20 pounds of that weight on her head.
Joyfully and gratefully. It felt
Literally
so good.
on her. I don't know if you know this, but on her head, barefoot, walking along.
I didn't know it, but I believe it. This sounds, I'm going to create a new word. This sounds a little snasu. Situation normal, all
Yeah.
Spartaned up.
Yeah, oh, nice. Nice.
This
I like
is a
it.
snasu.
So then we show
And,
up at our Airbnb, which is for 3 people, and I think we had 9.
Nine of
So
us in
Joe
there.
was like sleeping on the floor.
I want
But-
to hear more about Erica Walker, though, because, I mean,
Yeah,
she was a
Erica
huge part of
Walker.
this, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was there.
Princess of the Ruck.
Yeah, I mean, she was there, and she walked, and you'll hear on the interview, Joe did an interview with her. She goes into some personal depth on her story, kind of on her journey, which was surprising because I didn't know it. Grit, resiliency, she struggled at the tail end of that thing. And there were stops, every 2 miles or so? And she just said to hell with it and kept pushing.
Yeah.
knowing that if she stopped, she might stop for good.
She got so in the zone. You guys don't know this, that the next day when we had to leave early, like 5 a.m., she didn't talk to me the whole drive to the airport. She dropped the car off at the car rental, didn't talk to me, got on the plane, and left. So she was still in the march.
That
But-
sounds
no, but-
like
but
me
this-
after 2013 Death Race.
But she
I'm not
sent,
talking to you.
she sent out a text to all of us, right? At the airport, they asked her if she needed a wheelchair. I
That
mean,
is
so
hilarious.
there. When you get done with that, I don't care who you are, you're a little stiff.
Well, before we get into the actual event, let's talk about, we listened to a couple of the other survivors the day before. Tim, you know all about the Bataan Death March. We learned about Dan Crowley, but listening to those survivors made whatever issues we have in our lives seem pretty insignificant.
One of the gentlemen, and I don't remember his name. If somebody does, it could chime in. But his story, he went through so much hardship. He talked about even after the death march was over, after overcoming all of that, being put on a ship going to a prisoner of war camp that was shot by Americans he was worried about, and that the planes coming over for the first time that the American planes are there, but he's in a Japanese ship, and so it's being targeted. So now after surviving all of that, he's going down, and guys died in the ship and the rest of it. I mean, so. It's just
It was
amazing.
almost
it was like
tragic.
Oh, it was.
The
I mean,
ship they were in, I don't know if you
bombed.
heard it, right? 1,500 people in the hull, and he was like the size of this room,
just
right?
crammed in there like
that fit 50.
So it sets the scene for a pretty brutal situation. So
It is, and so this death march, by far the largest. It gets bigger every year. I think they announced 86 or 8,900 participants. I wouldn't say competitors because there's no first place. You finish or don't finish. So it's a full-on marathon. It's a 5,000-foot elevation change across pretty rugged terrain, beautiful terrain, but rugged. There were times we were very fortunate, I think, that it had snowed the day before,
packed
and
down
it
all
was
that
wet,
dust.
and that dust and sand was packed down. We started to feel it on the way back around mile 21 or so. It had dried out by then because it was now 75 degrees out. And that sand was starting to kick up, and you're walking at mile 21 in like ankle-deep sand up. You're going back uphill now. That started to hurt.
But even setting the stage. So we leave the Airbnb at like 4 a.m., right? And we all pile into that car. And Erica Walker is so motivational. She's like, I'm just asking you guys to come on a walk with me for 26 miles. Like we're all going to be fine. She blasts Janis Joplin in the car as we're driving there. You're just seeing... it looks like the heartbeat of this event, just all the traffic, everyone's piling into the event.
The red taillights going up through the mountain
red taillights,
passes.
they're going up there. And then we pull in and we go and we line up with all these other racers. And before the sunrise even, it was kind of one of the most moving.
Yeah, but who were we lined up with?
Oh, so we were lined up with OEW. And
Which is who and what?
Operation Enduring Warrior. I'll defer to you to explain.
Well, Operation Enduring Warrior, you saw them, is a charity
they're the best.
dedicated to wounded warriors, adaptive athletes, guys that are fully kitted out, missing limbs. Some of them are in wheelchairs. And then there's a group of them that'll actually wear the full-on pro mask, the gas mask, and they keep it on for the entire march of whatever event they're doing. They're at many of our races. They won't break the seal because it's the anonymity of the unknown soldier. They're representing the warrior, not the individual. So they don't want their faces known. But these guys, so as hard as I thought that course was at times, and I did, and we can talk about that later, to be able to do that in a mask while you're sweating and
in that heat,
and to never take that off.
The flag. You see the
flag.
size of the flag
Now
of the start line.
Flag's massive.
And it was like 4 stories. It was unbelievable, hanging from a crane. I mean, it gives you chills just seeing it.
It's called a post
Maybe
flag.
it doesn't matter to you because you're into Canadian flags.
No, you got a beautiful flag. There's no doubt. You do. It's amazing. And then
I mean,
But
you guys only have
they
a
sang
leaf.
not only the U.S.
And the
They sang not
Philippine-
only the U.S. national anthem, but the Filipino national anthem as well, which is inspirational. I don't know, but I think there may have been a Filipino army contingent there. I
think that's.
I think I heard it. I didn't see it, but I'm pretty sure of it.
And then once we got going, it was fairly easy. We just hiked it and left.
we're going to hear about it. We'll hear how easy it is on the tape.
Yes, and we're going. I'm telling you, when the first time you hear my voice, it's going to be like this. Because I think the first time you started talking to me was like at mile 12.
Just shove the thing
And
in your
it's
face.
it's like straight uphill, and it was right before I
But
said,
you were looking good, Colonel. He felt cold as a cucumber.
I recovered.
Colonel Nye was sweating
lot.
like the Hoover Dam had burst.
Like I
Right.
should put a
And-
desalination
Water.
tank
You ever
off of
see the
him.
movie Airplane?
Just
I-
reach
oh,
your-
yeah.
Remember that scene where water is shooting at? That was Colonel
But you
Nye.
look good.
Well, okay, but going up that hill, yeah, I would just have preferred that mic was not in my mouth or face at that time.
See, and I was like, what hill?
Later, when you hear me back,
Marion, that's the
we're-
microphone you had to throw out, right? Because
Yeah.
it was
No,
waterlogged.
but when we're going back downhill, it's a much more conversational tone. But I'm telling you, miles 9 through 13 are uphill, and 12 to
See,
13.
but it was a
is-
hill. It's not like a
it's-
mountain.
It's 5,000 foot elevation. That's
Oh.
a mountain. That's
the
I don't
that's as
know.
mountainy as you get. You
There was
can
a
see the terrain.
agave.
Zephyr's making a
There were
molehill out of a mountain.
horses.
Yeah.
Anyway, it
Alright,
was
so
a lot.
anyway.
It was a lot of fun. You guys are.
but
It really was.
is. Let
I mean-
me just backtrack 1 second, though. Again, kind of to reestablish the scene here.
Yes.
It was fun, and we had a great time. We had a great time doing it, and hopefully we'll do this again or other things like this. But again, when you go back in history in April of '42, and the thousands of Filipinos and the thousands of Americans who made this trek, which was somewhere around 65 to 70 miles, and the thousands, as many as 5,000 Filipinos killed along route, not dead, but executed randomly, beheaded, stabbed, run over. Americans just lined up, shot, all of them robbed. It's a brutal, brutal event in our American history. So we're there to memorialize it. So we had a great time, but I think it's proper to remember what it's really all about.
Absolutely. Yep.
So that last mile, right? I mean, we walked 24 miles, 24 and a half miles, but it seemed like it was the last mile and a half or so that all the action happened, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you, my brother, Frank Grippe, we're all kind of up front. I was walking stride for stride with you. I stopped to take a picture. You guys got about, 35 yards ahead. I said, I better catch up, and I started to run, and boom, down. But the legs just locked up. I mean, they were not, and you start doing the walk because you can't bend
Then
your legs.
it only gets worse, right?
Yeah, and then you guys were sitting there calmly eating your salt tablets and your oranges and staring at me as I tried desperately to waddle
so,
my
so
way.
this
Waddle
is
my way.
dehydration at this point.
Oh, definitely.
Well, I suspected dehydration, but I knew we were going to deal with an ego, not because it's Colonel Nye, but anybody's ego.
Yeah.
When I tell him to go in the medical tent, whether it's Charlie, my son, or Colonel Nye or myself, right? You're like, I don't need the medical tent. But you went right in.
Well, because I had downed like 2 bottles of Gatorade, ate all your salt tablets, nothing was working, and it happened to be about 5 feet away. I mean, there was no reason not to. But I was surprised, and I think this is on film. We get in there, ask for an IV, and the doctor says he can't do it. He said, "What can you do?" Gatorade and stretch. I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe I don't need to be in here because I'm already doing that.
Yeah.
But as he's stretching, he's asking for my medical history, my background. I'm giving it to him, and he said, "And oh, by the way, when are you going to get your hernia fixed?" And I said, "I don't have a hernia." He said, "Yes, you do." I said, "No, I don't." He said, "Okay, ignore me. I'm just a doctor telling you what you've got here."
No, I think he said to you, I've only seen 5,000 of these.
Yeah,
but,
exactly. He said, "Yeah, I'm telling you, you do." But anyway, Marion stayed behind with me. You gallantly, or impatiently, or maybe both, said, "Hey, Tim, we'll see you at the finish line." Maybe, hopefully, knowing I would get there.
No good deed goes unpunished.
No, but you picked up my ruck, right, and wore it in front like a chest strap kind of thing.
Yeah.
You already had yours on the back, which had to be uncomfortable. That little
It was
that
a
little
nightmare.
case.
I had my laptop case filled with beans. I had
And
your
a
pack on the
kettlebell,
front and a kettlebell.
Yeah, and you're waddling around as well. And then even when I came out of the
Business
tent,
shoes.
here comes Sefra, Erica. Well, you were with me, and we linked up with them. And I thought I was hurting, and I look over at Erica, who was still just focused. I mean, she was moving
Jeez.
forward. She wasn't
She
stopping.
sure was.
And I knew she wasn't stopping. But it was pain on every step to the point of literally
Almost throwing up.
dry heaving,
Dry heaving.
bending over and having to heave, stand up, reset herself, get ready, and keep walking. And it's a combination of the distance, the time, your body, it's 10 hours. So you can be in shape and be ready, like my brother, to run 3-hour marathons. But most people don't train at a 10-hour physical exertion limit. I mean, it's just unusual. So, but we all linked up right there before the final. Before all of that, we ran into a good friend along the route. We put a lot of guys, but Sergeant Major Frank Grippe ran into one of his good buddies.
Command Sergeant Major Phil Slottinger.
Oh, yeah. Phil was great.
He was.
He was great.
He was.
Some great words of wisdom.
So what I wanted to share with you is that living is not what we do ourselves, but the influence that we have on other people's lives. Because I would submit to you that all the ribbons and all the medals and stuff that I have on my uniform, you could take them all away. But I have 5 kids, 3 daughters, 2 sons, and to see them succeed in life and take care of my grandkids, erase everything I did, it's so far more important than me. The same thing's true with my service members, because when I see my sailors, airmen, Marines, who did I leave out? The sailors? Yeah, and soldiers. When I see them succeed and when I see them prepare people to follow them, then I know that they lived. It's not by what they do themselves. And the greatest compliment anybody could ever pay me would be for them to come back 6 months after I left a job and say, what the heck did he do? He's been gone for half a year and the place is running fine. Well, that's a testament to the fact that I prepared people to operate in my absence. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So if you want to hear the full interview that we recorded on the Bataan Memorial March out on the trail, including the conversation with one of our team members about their struggles and a lot about how we use the Spartan principles to help us get through the march, head on over to Apple Podcasts or Spotify or your podcast listening app of choice and just do a search for SpartanUP Podcast or SpartanUP Bataan, and you'll find this episode there.
We are your grit and resiliency partners. We're pretty much 6 days a week now. We're getting real close to 7 days a week where someone from our team is going to come into your television, into your phone, into your iPad, rip you off the couch, and show you how to be stronger, more resilient, and just attack your day more powerfully.
We motivate people. And if you're not subscribed on YouTube or iTunes, you must be living under a rock. So subscribe immediately. Otherwise, Tim will send a couple of people from
some Black
special
Ops guys,
operations.
Yeah,
They'll come to your house and bring you to the Bataan Death March.
Well, it's important to get those ratings up, right? Because the higher your ratings go, the better chance we get the better guest. The better guest, the better the.
Yeah, and then
so
the
it's
comments.
important for them.
Yeah,
right?
Not only that, you get the ratings up, but also comment. We love answering questions.
So, on that note, you're already watching, you're already listening. The idea is you've got friends, family, you want to change their lives. The more you can help us with our mission, the more we can help you with your mission.